Good afternoon, everybody. We'll wait for the two H's. Two H's, H1 and H2.
And G.
And G.
This is how passionate.
That's G. This is passion for you. Thank you so much for taking the time. Very busy in Indaba, interesting in Indaba, to come through and hear what we have to say with regards to the M's, the millennials. My name is Indaba. I'm head of communications at SANParks. I'll just do a few formalities so that we get them out of the way. To my left, and if you don't mind standing there, Ms. Hapil Wesello, Managing Executive Tourism and Marketing, South African National Parks. Then we have Professor Annelie Douglas from the University of Pretoria, whose research we'll be hearing about today for the first time. Leanne Slapper, who's Tourism Research Unit at South African National Parks. I have colleagues in the room, so we all welcome you in the name of conservation and tourism. Members of the media, welcome as well, and thanks for taking the time. I suppose we're setting the scene. This is the first of a series of a three-phase research approach that you'll be hearing of today. I think as an organization, SANParks, and I'm sure like you, we're looking at new ways of attracting new visitors to our national parks and other areas of interest. And our tourism research agenda, we have specific themes and objectives, which you'll hear Leandri talk about in a minute. And just to gather views and opinions of stakeholders, and in so doing, co-develop solutions, which I'm sure we all need to do as an industry, develop solutions about opportunities, management challenges, and how we grapple with the needs of the new visitors, old visitors, keeping them coming to whichever destination and park that we need. Now, the research we're showing today, like I said, is being shared for the first time. It discusses millennials, their travel motivation and requirements, expectations of nature-based holidays, requirements for activities and facilities, and awareness, and their awareness of our national parks. So I'm guilty of having to Google millennials, we hear it all the time. I said, what exactly is it? So here's what Google told me. A person reaching young adulthood in the early 20th century, the industry brims with theories on what makes millennials tick. And so we're all trying to know what makes them tick. How do we connect with them? I'm a stepmother to what I thought was a millennial. I'm an aunt to millennials. And we often have conversations about, are these kids different today? Nobody seems to understand it. Nobody knows what makes them tick. We think they have a fashion sense. They think we don't. The other day, my nephew came and said, don't you think my sunglasses are cool? And I was like, but my mom wore those when she was in her 20s. They like to talk, or they like to keep to themselves. They're very individual, they're very opinionated, and they seem to like exclusivity. And I'm just talking from my experience of having millennials in my life. And so, who belongs to this group we call millennials? The official social construct, I suppose. Generation Y. I was telling the professor, I read up and now I'm hearing the term post-millennials. And I'm like, another term to contend with. Like I said, they have things that stick to the palm of their hands. It's their tablets, it's their life, it's who they are, it's how they communicate. Is that going to play a big factor in how you need to connect with them? And so, in preparing for the session, I came across a study that talked about how technology plays a factor in dividing lines between generations. It called the oldest post-millennial members would have been 10 when the iPhone was introduced, whereas many millennials will still have memories of landlines, touchstones, and rotary phones. As technology plays an encompassing role in our lives, those societal developments are seeing a big enough distinction to draw generational lines. Baby boomers were known as the TV generation. Generation X experienced computer revolution. Millennials are experiencing the internet revolution. So I'll leave it there. I'm going to hand over to my colleague Leandi, who will talk about SANParks, how we approach our research, to touch on some of the research, and she'll introduce the prof, and we'll get right into it. Thank you.
Thank you, Janine. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Before we go into the real presentation, I wanted to give you a sense of how we do tourism research, why we do it, what are we trying to achieve through it, and to provide you with some examples of some of the projects that we typically embark on. At SANParks, we do tourism research to try and achieve 5 objectives. Research can help us understand the visitor and the visitor experience better. Research can help us identify appropriate markets and products that we grow and sustain our tourism revenues. Research helps us conduct business in a more responsible and sustainable manner. Research helps us define the value of nature-based tourism, specifically in protected areas. What does it mean to society? And what is the contribution that it's making towards the economy, specifically regional economies? And last but not least, on a more practical level, how can we conduct our tourism operations more efficiently? So how do we do this? We basically work off a plan which we call the Tourism Research Agenda. The agenda is driven by 7 key themes, and each key theme has sub-themes and topics within it. Our agenda as a whole is informed by management challenges, by inputs from thought leaders in the industry, by previous research that's conducted. We refresh our agenda every 3 years, although we see it as a living document, so new research requests gets added on continuously. It's a continuous process, it's not cast in stone for 3 years. So we recently refreshed our agenda last year, and we're busy embarking on that. However, we have limited resources ourselves, so we rely very heavily on working with our research partners to execute on our research agenda. And the way we do that, there's various avenues one can follow, but one specific vehicle that we found very useful is to work through Memorandum of Understandings. We've currently got 9 MOUs signed with universities, of which 7 is local universities, and that has helped us tremendously. We've built a really strong relationship with universities over the years that help us execute our agenda. Over the last couple of years, we've also increased the number of projects where we gather stakeholder opinions and views. And the purpose of that, as Janine mentioned, is to co-develop solutions to various opportunities and management challenges with our visitors and our potential visitors. Some examples of that include, in 2016, we partnered with Market Data and Consumer Conversations, two market research companies, to help us understand what we call the non-traditional market expectations are, and how they view SANParks as a tourist destination. The University of Queensland helped us with traffic management stakeholder perception study in Kruger to help us alleviate the congestion that we experience in some days in the South of Durban National Park. Then, together with the University of Pretoria, we investigated what the impact of rhino poaching and the anti-poaching measures put in is on the tourist experiences. A big project currently still running is examining the link between environmental management and responsible tourism. It's quite a range of aspects that it investigates, but one of them is looked at expectations and experiences of visitors in terms of responsible tourism practices. And that's with 5 different universities that have collaborated. Other key projects that we currently have running is investigating how visitation to national parks contributes to human well-being by Tshwane University of Technology. So that's looking at all the intangible benefits. It's not so hard to, or not so easy to define. What are the intangible benefits people experience when they visit parks? The Institute of Futures Research looked into the tourists of the future. We've got a project from UJ looking at the potential of geotourism to contribute towards social sustainability in Kruger National Park. Also looking at visitor expectations and perceptions of heritage sites at selected national parks, also by TUT. Those are just some examples to give you a sense of the type of projects that we engage in. Then we also do in-house research. 2016 we put together a business segmentation program, and that's mainly focused on understanding our current market's needs and preferences and their opinions on certain management aspects as well. We kicked that off with the camping product diversification study in 2016. We've recently just finished the overnight business segmentation study and working through a lot of information and stats which we'll put out in reports in due time. To get back to today's presentation, millennials. As Janine has mentioned, SANParks is working very hard at finding ways to attract younger generations to our national parks. Understanding millennials and how they differ from previous generations is important not just to SANParks but to the whole tourism industry. Everyone is talking about it and talking about how we should respond to these different changes. And that's why we thought it best to pull our peers and our partners with us in this research journey. What's going to be presented today is only the first phase of the research, and we hope to find it as interesting as we did. It is now my pleasure to introduce to you our speaker, Professor Annelie Douglas. She's an associate professor at the Division Tourism Management within the Department of Marketing Management at the University of Pretoria. SANParks have a long-standing relationship with the University of Pretoria, and Professor Annelie has been involved in quite a few projects for SANParks personally. She has published in the leading international tourism journals. She's a member of various industry and academic associations, both locally and internationally. She's been part of several funded research projects involving research partners from Australia, Finland, Austria. Currently, she is the principal investigator of a collaborative project, which I mentioned previously, that leads environmental management with responsible tourism. And as part of this project, she's also investigating the environmentally responsible behavior of business travelers versus leisure travelers. Please give a warm round of applause.
Professor just arrived this morning from Australia, so please forgive her. She might object. It's a horrible flight.
Yeah, it is. So I said to Leandri, if she hears me talking incoherently, she should just give me a slap. So, yeah. So good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. I think from the University of Pretoria side, we are extremely fortunate to have a memorandum of understanding with SANParks and with such an established organisation as SANParks. And it's always so easy for us to work with them as a research partner. And as you know, there's always pressure on universities to publish. And so they really make it easy for us to collect the data and then to publish on it. So I have to acknowledge my colleague, Professor Pierre Mostert, who also worked with me on the project. Unfortunately, he cannot be here this afternoon, but all of this was done with his help. So if we just run quickly through the agenda, as Janine and Leandri has mentioned, this is only the first phase of the project, and we'll speak into that in the next slide. We're going to define millennials because, as all the speakers have mentioned, no one actually knows who they are. So we need to find a definition, and as researchers, we need to find consensus on what we mean when we talk about millennials. Then we're going to look at the rationale, but I'm just going to run through that because it's also been mentioned. We're going to talk about the purpose and the objectives of the research. Just a very brief literature review in terms of what we already know about the millennial market in general, but also more specifically as tourists. I'm going to explain the research process quickly to you, and then we're going to get to the exciting stuff, the findings actually, and we're going to do some conclusions just to see how our research confirmed some of the things that we already know about millennials, but also contradict some of the things that we thought we knew about millennials, and then just going to talk about what's next for the research. So in phase one, we decided, because there's very, very little published knowledge on millennials, and there's virtually nothing that we know about the South African millennial market, it will be best to engage in qualitative research, because we needed a platform where we could engage with these millennials and where we could get in-depth knowledge and details on their travel behavior. It involved 6 focus groups, and I'll share with you how we sampled the focus groups, and we only conducted the focus groups in Gauteng. The second phase will commence very shortly, and in the second phase we are going to do some quantitative research. So much larger sample, we're going to do it via surveys, maybe we haven't quite confirmed that yet, and it's going to be in Gauteng. And then the third phase, we are going to also have quantitative research with surveys, and then we're going to look at South Africa as a whole. So we're going to go to 3 metropolitan areas outside of Gauteng, and we're going to collect data there. So what we say today is, as we say, it's phase 1. We cannot make any conclusions yet, but it does give us very, very good indication on who the millennial is and what they want. So just briefly before we start, a little video on this generation. Define millennials, we see that there are currently 5 generational cohorts in existence. There's an older one called the GI generation, but last night I did some research and I found out that the youngest of the GI generation is now 95 years old, so I thought we could leave there for now. So these cohorts are firstly the silent generation, then also baby boomers, Generation X, Generation Y, and then the youngest is Generation Z, or Generation Z as the Americans would say. We're going to focus on Generation Y, the millennials today. Some people call them the narcissistic tech gurus, others call them the echo boomers, and also some call them the me generation. But we prefer to be more positive, so we will call them the millennials. So they are the demographic cohort following Generation X and preceding Generation Z. And for this research, we use the definition of Pew Research in the US, who said that millennials are those born between 1981 and 1996. So you can work out how old they are. So the oldest one is then 38 years old. So in terms of in general, millennials will embrace with technology, and therefore they embrace technology and they're very comfortable with change. They communicate through the means of social media and text messaging and expect instant feedback and acknowledgement. They value immediate gratification, and in the findings we will also see that. And they're constantly looking for opportunities to excel. And I think in the short video you also spoke to that. They are confident and entitled, and I deal with them every day as a lecturer. I can tell you that's definitely true. However, they are also known to be more depressed and to have poor communication skills. And researchers actually found that characteristics of different generations can be generalized across nations. So sometimes we think, and if we look at the video, then we think it's only true of American millennials or UK millennials, but research actually found that these characteristics can be generalized across nations. Yes, there will be peculiarities, but in general they share the same characteristics. So as Janine and Leandri already said, as we know, SANParks' customer base is extremely loyal and they return to the parks 2 or 3 times a year, but unfortunately they are aging and they are becoming older. So the need is there for SANParks to draw the younger markets. And in order to do that, they need to understand this market and they need to know what will attract them to the park and what will make millennials accept the park as their destination of choice. So that's why we set out to do this research. So the overall purpose was to determine the travel behavior of the millennial market with specific reference to nature-based holiday destinations, and then even more specifically to SANParks as a holiday destination. So the first question that we asked of the millennials is why they travel. So what motivates them to travel? What inspires them to travel? Secondly, we wanted to find out what are the factors that they consider when they have to make a travel decision. Thirdly, we established the activities, facilities and entertainment that they want from any holiday destination. And then we also determined the media usage in terms of the channels that they use to find information, also the type of information that they look for. Then we talked about the marketing programs that will inform and persuade them to visit a specific destination. We established the millennials' expectations from a nature-based holiday experience. We examined where a nature-based experience fits into their destination set. And then we also determined the likelihood of them visiting the South African National Park. And lastly, we asked them what do they require and what do they expect in terms of activities, facilities and entertainment from South African National Parks. So what do we know about the millennial as a tourist? And I've only gone to find the key findings that we know about them. So we know that they will soon become the largest and most lucrative tourist group due to their size and potential future disposable income. We know that by 2025, up to 3/4 of all consumers and travelers will be the younger generations. And we also know that they are completely different than all the other generations before them. They engage in unique experiences and adventure travel. And it's more important for them to have experiences than to buy a property or to pay off debt. In terms of the information search, research has shown that more than 50% of this cohort search for information about potential destinations to visit before they travel. So we can assume that they are possibly more flexible in their destination choice than the generations before them. We also know that they use an assortment of channels. They look for information from a number of sources. Very interesting is they use or they have a higher likelihood to make use of online travel agents, and that was also shown in our research. They contemplate more potential destinations. They actively look for things to do. They search for a diverse range of tourism experiences. They also have very short attention spans, so you need to keep them entertained and you need to give them new experiences, otherwise they get bored very easily. They search for, they also watch videos, use live chat, and listen to podcasts, and they're also more open and responsive to online advertising. So what are the expectations and what are the experiences that they want? Research that was done very, very recently found that the most important motivations for them why they go on holiday is firstly to relax, secondly to escape from the ordinary, and thirdly to experience different lifestyles. So to millennials, travel is equated to novelty. So they want the opportunity to attempt a different lifestyle or to live new experiences or to see new places and to obtain new knowledge. They like to live like a local, and this was possibly one of the most interesting finds for me in this research, is that they definitely do. They like active holidays and they want to make their own plans. Their least important motivation, according to this research by Rita Brochado and Indaba, was to visit family and friends, to meet people with similar interests, and visit places my friends have not visited before. That's not important to them. In terms of destination activities, they like to try local food, they like sightseeing, but partying and gambling was not important to them. Very interesting also. Don't know if that's true for my students, but we'll have to wait and see. So the primary characteristic of Generation Y is their need for experiential consumption. Now I think in the tourism industry we all know that. There is increasing need for experiential consumption also from this generation. They desire to listen less and to do more. So for this reason, they show less importance for any educational or interpretive part of their visit, and more importance on obtaining value from a physical engagement. They want to travel with a purpose, so they expect the travel experience to add to their personal development. And then lastly, they also want the travel experience to add to their quality of life. Then in terms of specifically looking at millennials and nature-based holidays, research that has been done, is that for millennials, the location itself is less important than the activities that they want to do at the location. But some research actually contradicted this. So some research found that for millennials, cultural indigenous tourism experiences are more important than nature-based experiences. And if you have to take a guess from our research, which one do you think was the most important?
Nature.
We'll have to wait and see. And then overall, the Generation Y participants were not willing to accept responsibility for their travel behaviours. This may result in future tensions as the strengthening environmental ethic of society challenges Generations Y feeling of entitlement to unrestricted travel without offsets. And again, there we encounter the entitlement about that. So basically, when compared with all the previous generation, we actually know very little about the millennial as a tourist and as a traveller. And that's why we engage in qualitative research, as I said before, to really delve deeper into what motivates them and why they travel and how they travel, so that we can start understanding this market. So we decided to, because it's such a broad range of individuals, we decided to split them up in life cycle groups. So we had 6 focus groups that we conducted during February and March of this year. So firstly, we said that we need to find the youngest millennials. So those we classified as the single adults not employed. So they haven't, or they are not yet employed, so they're still studying, in other words. The second group was single adults permanently employed. So it's also the younger part of the millennials, but they are now permanently employed, so they have the money to spend on travel. Then we looked at new couples without kids. We also looked at preschool families and at primary school families. And then we said, because SANParks has a drive to attract more of the non-traditional market, we wanted to have a focus group focusing specifically on the African millennial. And so we had a 6 focus group specifically focusing on African millennials. So the description of the sample, as you can see, we had about 54 participants in the focus groups, which I think was very good. And there you can see it was quite a nice split between males and females. Unfortunately, males are less keen to give information, so we had more females, but that doesn't matter. And we also had a good spread in terms of the population groups. So if we get directly into the results, the first question, as we said, asked millennials why do they travel? So what inspires them, or what motivates, or what encourages them to travel? And two main motivations seem to inspire them. The first one was to rest, relax, unwind, and take a break. And one of the respondents actually said she just wants to take a break from this craziness. So that was her reason why she wants to go on holiday. The second main motivation seems to be exploring by seeing and experiencing new and different places. And one of our participants actually said, now that I have a daughter, it is to see new things that I did not get to see when I was younger. Millennials are also motivated to take a holiday if it means that they can escape and experience a change of scenery. So they want to experience something that they do not usually do when they are at home. So they want something different. Very interesting is when we looked at the frequency of the responses, to rest and relax was mentioned most by the group with children between the ages of 7 to 13. Shame, because these people are just so tired. The kids make them tired. They have to run from one activity to the next. So they just want to rest and relax. But then to explore and see and experience new places was mentioned most by the new couples without children. So they still have possibly the time and the disposable income to see new things, to do new things, and they don't have to worry about also accommodating the kids in that. And then also very important that came out from the research, some millennials also take a holiday to give them a chance to spend more time with family. So some say they just want a break from the craziness, and will also give them a chance to reconnect and to engage with their families again, because things get so hectic and get so busy, so we just need that time to spend with family again. Some of the factors that millennials consider when choosing a holiday destination, the most important factor, and this does not really speak to millennials per se, but I think it's just part of our environment. So the most important factor was cost. So that is the first thing that millennials consider when they go on holiday, is how much is it going to cost. Very interesting was that cost was actually more important to the younger millennials than the older ones. So before we would have said, but the younger ones, the parents still pay, so I'm sure they're not that concerned about cost. But that was actually the most important thing for the younger millennials. They also consider the activities available at the destination, and then also followed by the geographical location. But obviously the geographical location can also be linked to the cost of the holiday and the availability of time. Then also participants mentioned the novelty of the destinations, where millennials prefer destinations where they have not been before. And one participant actually said new places that I have not been to are actually more attractive to me. So that's things that they consider. Other factors were the logistics of the trip, the time of the year, the facilities available, and then also mentioned quite frequently was the safety of the destination. Then we also wanted to gather some quantitative information. So we also had questionnaires that the focus groups completed before they started with the focus group, and then during the focus group we did another one. So one of the questions in the questionnaire asked the millennials to indicate what their preferred accommodation types were. And as you can see there, 50% of all the participants said they preferred bed and breakfasts, 48% said hotels, 43% said stay with family, and then 35% said a resort. Then we also compared the non-traditional respondents with the white respondents, and there you can see non-traditional respondents do not like to backpack or use hostels, and they also do not like to camp or caravan, whereas the white respondents were more keen on those options. The next question we said to millennials, and that's where we wanted to find out where a nature-based experience feature in their holiday consideration set. So we said to them, we give them 8 options. and they had to first indicate what their preferred option was, so their first choice of holiday destination, and then after that they could choose an additional 3 options. And the options that we gave them was adventure and sport, a boat cruise, nature, city or shopping, coast, cultural, resort, and then also wildlife. And as you can see there, in terms of the whole sample, the coast was actually, for an annual holiday, millennials prefer to spend some time at the coast. City and shopping was also preferred, and then nature came in third. And there you can see we also broke it down in terms of the different focus groups. So as you can see, for the single adults, their first choice was coast and nature. For the preschool families, coast, and for the primary school families, boat cruises. And that's possibly because there's so much entertainment options on boat cruises, so that might be one reason for that. Then we repeated the same question, but in terms of for a short break or a weekend, what type of accommodation would millennials prefer? And again, bed and breakfast scored very highly, followed by resort and hotels. And then we also made a split between males and females. And we see that the males preferred resorts more than the females, and also private rental, again, the females preferred more. Thought a bit about the resort, why males were quite likely to choose resorts, and then in our sample, the majority of males that we had was either single or newly married. So they obviously still want the socializing and the entertainment, and then a resort might be more likely to give them those options. And again, we compared non-traditional respondents with white respondents, and very interestingly is for the non-traditional respondents, only 36% prefer to stay with family, whereas for the white respondents it was 52%, and there you can also see the rest of the accommodation options. Again, the same question was repeated for weekend or short break destination preferences, and for a short break or weekend, participants actually also chose nature as their most preferred destination, followed by coast. And again, remember that we had Gauteng as participants. Obviously the coast would be too far for a weekend break. Adventure and sport, and then city and shopping. And again, we broke it down in terms of the different groups. Then very interesting, we asked them, if you look at any holiday destination, what are some of the activities that you require from any holiday destination? And nature-based activities were mentioned the most frequently by all the respondents, followed by cultural activities, and then any other activity that they do not get a chance to do while they are at home. So in terms of nature-based activities, it seems that the younger millennials were more inclined to engage in these than the older millennials, and typical activities that they would like to enjoy at a nature-based destination was horse riding, not nature-based, it was only any holiday destination. So horse riding, hiking, bicycling, game drives, fishing, and then going to the beach as well. Cultural activities were more popular amongst the not employed group, the non-traditional focus group, and also the permanently employed focus group. And as I mentioned before, what was very interesting was their desire to live like a local. So one respondent actually said, when I'm there, I like to talk to the local people, have a drink with them, and ask them about their daily lives there. I even try to do some of their activities. Another participant said, I like to go to places and immerse myself in a culture, and I try to steer away from the touristy things. I might go and check it out, but apart from that, I want to go to the local pub. I want to see what the locals are doing. Then we asked them what facilities they require from any holiday destination. And very, very interesting was that they are not that concerned about luxury and opulence, but as long as they have basic amenities there, that is what they are interested in. So they just want a comfortable bed and a clean shower. That's their basic requirements. Very interesting was, we asked them specifically in terms of cell phone reception and Wi-Fi. And a lot of respondents said, well, when they are in South Africa, obviously it's not that important because they have cell phone coverage, but when they are overseas, it becomes extremely important for them that there must be Wi-Fi and cell phone reception. So, as we said, one participant said, I would enjoy Wi-Fi, but if I don't have it in South Africa, it's not a train smash for me. For others, Wi-Fi was completely non-negotiable. So one participant said, I need Wi-Fi, so I look at the reviews beforehand, and if it does not mention anything about Wi-Fi, it is completely off the map for me. Other participants sought out destinations without Wi-Fi and without electricity. So one participant said, sometimes we actually look for places that don't have signal and don't have electricity. Because parents are busy, they work during long weekends, and sometimes they think that we are on our phones too much. So we actually look for places that don't have electricity and signal so that we can actually spend more time together as a family. And again, the whole family connection comes out. In terms of entertainment from any holiday destination, some participants felt that they could entertain themselves. So they said it's not up to the destination to entertain us, we can entertain ourselves, and we actually want anything with as little technology as possible. So one participant actually said they want something without battery power. So they want board games, they want to engage with each other, and they don't want to be entertained. Others said they definitely expect the destination to entertain them. So some say they won't consider a destination if there's no DSTV, if there's no games room, and they also want entertainment programs for the kids. So one participant said, sometimes for kids it's worthwhile to have entertainment and a program because kids want a routine. So these were obviously the families with small children. In terms of the channels of information, there were quite some interesting things that came up. Obviously, and I think we could have all guessed that when millennials look for information, their first stop is Google. And that's not much different than all of us. So our first stop usually is Google. Social media came out secondly, and obviously the usual ones such as Facebook, Pinterest, and blogs also seem popular as sources of information. Very interesting is Instagram did not come out as a source of information. And the reason for that is that participants said Instagram is important for showcasing and not really information. And another participant said, when it comes to Instagram, personally, I feel like I know the content is filtered, and that is where I never use it. So very interesting that. Booking.com was the third most mentioned channel of information for millennials. And then very interesting, and I think it's also a debate that we engage in as a tourism industry, is the value of travel agents. And travel agent is actually still being used by the millennials. So what became known was, as we went on with the focus group, is the propensity to use a travel agent is very much linked to the travel experience. So if millennials go overseas and they feel that they don't have the travel experience, they are more likely to make use of travel agent, whereas if it's local travel and they know the destination, then they will do the arrangements themselves. Other channels mentioned very frequently was TripAdvisor, Airbnb also as a channel of information, then word of mouth also, and then Lekker Slaap, but obviously only for the Afrikaans speaking participants. Very interesting also is it seems as if the use of printed media as an information source is becoming less attractive to the millennial market. So in all of the focus groups, only 2 participants mentioned any printed media when they look for information. The type of information that millennials look for, again, the most important category of information that they look for is costs, specials, discounts, freebies, anything that will make the cost of travel cheaper for them. That came up very, very strongly. The second most, and that all the literature will also tell you, that category of information that they look for was reviews. So for millennials, reviews are extremely important, and they will change their minds if they read a bad review. So they most read reviews on TripAdvisor, Booking.com, and then also Airbnb was also a favorite channel to read reviews. Then they also looked for information on activities, type of accommodation, facilities, and other general information. Next question that we asked them is, what marketing methods will inform and persuade you to visit any holiday destination? And again, as expected, social media was one of the categories most mentioned by participants. Among the platforms, Facebook and their Instagram came out as an important marketing channel, and YouTube were mentioned the most frequently. Twitter and blogs were each mentioned once, so not really that important. Surprisingly, social media was not mentioned once by the permanently employed millennial group. Very interesting again for me was the power of influence. So we all know that influencers are becoming very important, but I always think, when I think, can't you make up your own mind? They cannot. So they want someone to entice them. So one participant actually said, but I also actually think social media plays an important part, because if you follow certain influencers, they go on holiday and they post these amazing photos and videos of them. You get that sense of you also want to experience that, and that you also want this lifestyle. So extremely important, the power of influencers. Images, photos, videos, and music also play a major role in informing and persuading millennials. Again, a recurring theme throughout the focus groups was the importance of cost and specials and discounts, so also as a marketing method. Websites were also mentioned by some participants, and then also some traditional marketing methods, even something like billboards, trade shows, TV magazines, and other marketing methods, also word of mouth, travel expos, information booths, but those weren't mentioned that frequently. Then we started to focus on specific destinations. So we wanted to know of millennials, what do they want specifically from a nature-based holiday experience? So what are their expectations? And the most mentioned theme was wildlife and animals. So one participant actually said, I prefer animals. When it is a national park, I want to see animals. I once went to this national park and I did not see anything, and it affected my perception of that national park because I felt that they were promoting and giving us a wrong impression about the place. And this very much speaks into their instant gratification. So if you promise them that they are going to see the big five, they want to see the big five. Otherwise, they feel it's false advertising. And this was not mentioned once, it was mentioned recurringly throughout the focus group. So if you promise something, you should deliver.
So we must stage the lions.
Yeah, you see, as a facilitator, I couldn't say that to them, but I actually wanted to. So I wanted to say, so do you think there should be a time that we should open the gates for the animals, or what? Some participants were actually less keen on animals and wildlife. And a reason for that possibly was that so a lot of the participants said they have small children, and when they don't want to have these small children close to animals. So one participant said, I'm not an animal person, but I love to see them if everything is caged. If I'm safe, I want to see them from far, like the zoo. So they were not at all keen on animals. Many participants also mentioned that a nature-based experience should be authentic, natural, and responsible. The activities available at the nature-based destination also received some attention, and activities that they would like to engage in was guided tours, hiking, game drives, mountain biking, horse riding, rock climbing, visits to local communities, and so on. The scenery en route was also, and at the destination, was also very important to them. And then obviously all the males in the focus groups mentioned when we asked about facilities, they said there must be a bride facility. That's very important to them. Some also spoke about double beds as opposed to single beds. They said this thing that they have single beds when they go on holiday is nonsense, because then they can't sleep with the mum and dad and all the kids on one bed, and that doesn't work for them. So they specifically wanted double beds, equipped kitchens, and then swimming pools. Very important for SANParks. So then we moved the conversation on to focus specifically on SANParks. But obviously before we started with the focus group, so that we could not influence them, and before they actually knew what the focus group was on, we asked them whether they've ever heard of SANParks. So that was, so we could not influence them. Good news for SANParks is more than 70% of respondents indicated that they have heard of SANParks before. Whereas most of the older respondents have heard of SANParks before, larger percentages of those aged 25 to 29 and 24 years old and younger indicated that they have not. And that is also something that came across in a lot of their focus groups, is that as a generation, they do not seem too aware of all the different options open to them, and that's also especially the younger millennials. When asking respondents what they thought the full description of SANParks is, most could correctly cite South African National Park. So again, that's good news for SANParks. Then we asked them, what is the likelihood that you would visit a South African National Park? And the majority of the participants indicated that they were likely to visit the national park. Most indicated that they are likely to visit specific parks, so some said they only want to go to Ada or Kruger or so on, whereas a number also mentioned that they want to visit all the 21 national parks. So we actually gave them a list of all the parks, and then they could respond on that. Only 3 participants out of the 54 said that they are not likely to visit any of the parks, while another 3 were uncertain. So that's also very good news. And then we had a question also on the pricing of SANParks. So we first asked them what they expect to pay for accommodation at SANParks. And very interesting is they expected to pay much higher than what the actual prices are. And then when we gave them the actual prices, they became very adamant to visit a SANPark. So then they said, now I'm even more likely to go to a SANPark. So that was also very, very good news, I thought. What activities and facilities do they require from SANParks? So the activities that they most prefer would be game drives, self-drives, hiking, bicycling, tennis, and fishing. SANParks. A lot of emphasis was placed on the educational aspect of these activities, with participants noting, I would like someone to tell us about the different types of animals, even birds. I expect someone who is knowledgeable from that area. I will find a lot of value by engaging with someone who knows the area and vegetation. Culture was also mentioned very frequently, and some participants mentioned culture as an entertainment option, whereas others mentioned culture as an activity that they would like to engage in. So one participant said, every place needs something unique about it. So I like the ladies with the stalls and what they've created. I would not buy all of it. I will buy what I like, but I like to see how the entrepreneurship is done in that area. And again, culture was mentioned more by the non-traditional market. In terms of facilities, again, participants require braais. Very important was also that they want an option to either self-cater or to go to a restaurant. And they don't only want one restaurant, they want a variety of restaurants that they can choose from. A pool was also very important for them, a spa, and then a convenience shop. Regardless of the type of facility, participants mentioned that it should be clean, working, and well maintained. So again, they don't expect much, they don't expect luxury and opulence, they expect basic amenities. Then, in terms of entertainment required from SANParks, some participants were convinced that they do not need any entertainment. So one participant said, you will have to entertain yourself. Another one said, searching for wildlife, and at night I can just have a bra under the stars, relax, but you don't necessarily need entertainment. Then a third participant said, no one goes to SANParks because they want a resort type of thing, because that's not the kind of holiday. That is how I see things. Others expect to be entertained by the parks. So one of the most interesting findings from this research was actually that millennials require of national parks is a central meeting place for socializing and entertainment. So the central meeting place again was mentioned more by male participants without kids. And again, maybe that's that need that they have to socialize. And it might also be ascribed to the fact that participants were quite cognizant and aware that there's strict rules within the parks, and they were happy with the rules, and that's why they wanted to have a social meeting place in the center of the park where they could be rowdy and enjoy alcohol and. So one participant said, I would like to see things set up like a BOMA. This is where people meet for music and gives the opportunity to network with whoever is probably in the camp. So a social meeting place is important for them. So that was quite a mouthful. So in conclusion, what did our research confirm and what did our research contradict? So in terms of firstly supporting literature, so the literature said to us that millennials use an assortment of information, varied channels, TV, documentaries, and our research confirmed that. So millennials look for a variety of information such as costs, activities, and facilities on a variety of platforms such as Google, social media, TripAdvisor, Airbnb. They display a high usage of online travel agents, and our research also confirmed that. So as we said, booking.com was very important for them, or a preferred channel, and then also like a slot for a certain market segment. They actively look for things to do. Again, our research also showed that activities was one of the most searched for categories when looking for information. So it's important for them to be on the go and to be active all the time. Our research also confirmed the three motivations why millennials travel was to relax, to explore, and to escape from the ordinary. Again, also the research shows that travel is equated to novelty, and our research confirmed that. Millennials want to explore, see new and different places, and to live like a local is regarded as the best way to have unique travel experiences. And again, our research confirmed that, in that millennials want to be immersed in the local culture and they want to live like a local. How do our findings differ from the literature? So the literature said one of the least important motivations for a holiday is to visit family and friends, whereas our research actually showed that it's very, very important. One participant said, for me, a holiday is to spend time with my family that lives far away. So an important motivation. The existing research shows that millennials show less importance for any educational or interpretive part of the visit, whereas our research showed that they actually want to be educated and they want an activity to be, so that there's an emphasis on the educational and interpretive part of the activities, and they were keen to learn from someone with local knowledge. As I asked at the beginning, what do you think, which activity was more important for our millennials? It was nature-based activities followed by cultural activities. And then the activities that they most enjoy was horse riding, hiking, game drives, chilling on the beach were found to be most appealing. I'm not too sure that they are not into partying. If there's a social meeting place, it tells me that they like to socialize and to be entertained. So I'm not sure if that is supporting the literature. So the next steps, as we said, this is only the first part of 3 phases. Another option is also to do some field research, and we've had some discussions on it, and we'll see if that's going to work, where we actually have a group of millennials before a SANParks experience and after a SANParks experience. So we can ask them, what do you think you're going to experience, what are your expectations, and so on, and then we can measure them afterwards again and see how that differs. So I think that's going to be very interesting. And then my question is, what about Generation Z? So they are the new generation, and we need to find, if we're into product development and if we're into marketing, we need to find out what they want. Unfortunately, as a university, it's difficult for us to access them because we need to get their parents' consent and so on. But that is the next question, is what about Generation Z? And that is what we have to share with you this afternoon.
Thanks, Emily. Before I just hand over to my managing executives, I think we've scratched the surface, and I'm really interested to see what phase 2 is going to bring. Besides us needing to build tennis courts in national parks, fishing. I think our tourism growth strategy is on point. We've got the parks to offer them what they need, undoubtedly. And I'm thinking sometimes when we take them kayaking, they might need a field guide to walk them through, to talk about the birds and the bees, and also it's giving us some interesting insight and making our jobs easier as marketers and communicators. Say, oh, is that what they want? Perhaps we can tweak things here, there, and everywhere. But Emmy, for SANParks, we've scratched the surface. What does it mean? Are you excited? We can't get too much about, my God, we don't have what they need, but it's interesting nonetheless.
Thank you, Professor. Very, very insightful, as always. We all know this is the market of the future. I think every industry is looking at how do you sell to the millennials. And I read some piece of research a while ago, and one of the things that was said there is the millennials are unlike any other segment because they are so different from any generation that came before them. So our generation, I won't refer to you because you look like a millennial. My generation is very similar to the generation of its parents. So that is then demonstrated in how we choose brands, what influences our needs and our preferences in how we live our lives. And this is a generation from another planet altogether. Professor alluded to that. They're from another planet. Everybody's trying to figure them out. In the US, they're not buying property. They're not keen about getting onto the property ladder.
Not vaccinating their children.
Oh,
Or
vaccinating their children and their children. You know, so they're a very unique market. And what is undoubted is that they are going to be the largest consumer market. And for travel, it is estimated about 70% of our market is going to come from these people, and we need to understand them. It's very difficult because they're so different from any other generation. It's difficult for us to make a lot of suppositions. So this is, as Leandri has said, we keep researching and keep probing, and we confirm a lot. Sometimes every piece of research is something new. But for us as SANParks, what is becoming very evident is we need to think differently. And for an organization that has existed for the length that we have existed, we need to ask ourselves the question, are we agile enough? Are we nimble? And are we open-minded enough? And how much can we shift to open ourselves up to this market? Because maybe for the first time it's about us being accepted by a market as opposed to us accepting the market. And that's a hard pill to swallow, I think, personally.
So we've existed somehow as SANParks. We manage over 60% of the conservation estate. Anybody who loves nature, this is the first port of call. So life has changed a little bit radically. So as we talk about open-mindedness, what are we going to do different as SANParks? Because just to remind you as the media that we generate 80% of our income. So our tourism business is very significant in the survival of SANParks and for its ability to continue to fulfill its mandate of conserving biodiversity and cultural heritage. So that's how critical it is. So what is it that we need to change, being the giant that we are? And there are three categories where we have to look at what we need to change. First one is product development. So we've had a very cookie cutter approach to what a tourist wants within a national park and how they want to experience it. So when we were talking about what is now really what the Prof was referring to as our traditional market, which is white, it's a homogeneous market. It's white, it's middle-aged to about 70, and we still get 80-year-olds and 90-year-olds if they're still alive, but they come. Like clockwork, it's like a pilgrimage. They've always been loyal, and we've given them what they wanted, which is a rondavelle, nicely thatched, and it's rustic. And a scottle braai. And it's worked. It's worked. Sometimes you shouldn't fix something if it's not broken. But now we're saying it's not broken, but doesn't need to be modified. That's where we're at. So what products are these people looking for? And maybe the scottle braai, I'm so happy to hear that the scottle braai is not going anywhere. That fills me with a lot of joy. But I think there's certain elements in terms of the comfort experience that we need to incorporate into what we provide as products. And then there is the actual leisure activities. So our traditional market has always done the 3-hour day drive from 5 in the morning to 9 a.m. and then another one at 5 p.m. You see, and then go and sit around a fire and reminisce about what they saw and so on and so forth. These guys are telling us something different. They're saying, I have kids. I don't want them around dangerous animals. Or I have kids, I want them watching DSTV. I don't particularly, as an auntie, encourage that, but I want them watching whatever kiddie or whatever these things are called. They're saying, I want jungle gyms. I want my kids to be absorbed. So the simple one, they're saying, I want to hang out with my peers. I want to meet new people. I want to chat around the bonfire. And we talk silence after 9 p.m. Silence, as in you can hear a brunch break, small little brunch outside at 10 p.m. So these conflicting ideas, what do we do? And how is it that we accommodate this market, or this market accommodates us? Remember what I said for the first time, we're flipping it on its head, without us alienating our loyal market. So your 80-year-old who wants that 9 p.m. silence and darkness can hear in the silence a distance away people laughing. There was actually a complaint in social media.
I was going to say.
People laughing. It's a very, very faint. But the complaint was that until midnight they was talking, and I'm just imagining how many people was it? I saw that. Because I actually followed this thread to say, was it music? Was it? And it turns out there was no music. So how much noise were these people making? So this Boma, how do we then, I like that, yeah, I think it's great. Young people want to travel in a group, they want to chat, they want to have a drink, and I believe if you've given them the rules, they will follow it. But at the same time, we cannot prescribe. So it's a bit of a conundrum for us to talk from a product development point of view. Then there is the issue of marketing. Our head of marketing has stepped out, but this is what we are saying to him, how do you get through to these people? how do you get through to them? What are the platforms and what do you say to them? One of the things we know is, firstly, they're consumer activists. And so they have a very healthy dose of cynicism in terms of advertising. So, they kind of roll their eyes at advertising, but they listen to, as Prof was saying, influence is very critical. Peer review is very important to them. So at TripAdvisor, that's why TripAdvisor is so popular. And I'm not a millennial and I use TripAdvisor. Before I book anything, I check who said what about this place. So peer review is becoming a very critical element, which is not unusual anyway. Travel is a lot about, what is the word I'm looking for? Is a lot about word of mouth. So people tend to chat to each other about, oh, I went to this place, I liked it. Then that's how suddenly it makes it to somebody's bucket list. Have you done this? Oh, it was exhilarating. Oh, I loved it. So all of a sudden I take it and I say, I must look at that. That's how travel is. So now in the age of technology and immediacy, it makes it even more enhanced. So we also need to up our game, not only from a marketing point of view, but from ensuring that those peer reviews saying the things that should be said about us, the good things. So we need to up our game. The fewer the complaints, the better. So that's why, like a hawk, I will pick up a complaint like I did this morning, very, very quickly. I won't respond to it all the time, but I'll say, somebody check what is going on. Because that matters more than a billboard on the M1. Trust me. That's and as media, we've been traveling, or we've been covering this industry, you would agree. So how do we get through? How do we influence them? And we also realize that there's a lot of education that is needed. So fine, immediate gratification, but we're not going to fence the animals in. No. We're not. Somebody asked me, serious, is there a way we can sort of see them all together? I mean, have you guys thought of it? And I actually thought he was joking, and he meant it sort of like an enclosure, but not a small one, but an area where we can. I said, no, you can't. And that's part of that.
It's a zoo.
Yeah, it's a zoo. That's part of the fun for people who truly love nature, that you can drive around for 5 hours and then you see only choose big 5. It's like gambling, and tomorrow maybe you might see another one, maybe not, So that we can't change in terms of instant gratification. Or what we have to speak about in terms of that instant gratification is technology. Because I'm talking about our challenges as SANParks and how we have to react to this that we find ourselves facing. As they get stimulated to visit us, when we get our marketing right, our messaging right, when the peer reviews are attractive, how quickly does that interest convert into a sale? And how much are we enabling it as SANParks? So technology, are we giving people the right tools to book and to transact with us? And once they're inside the park, are we responding to their needs? So we have a few who seem to be sane, as that's saying, well, they can live without Wi-Fi. But according to Prof, the vast majority want Wi-Fi and they want to hear it now. This is such a departure from our traditional market that has said, I want to get away from it all. So we are constantly in this conflict of the old and the new. And we're trying to find the balance. But by just giving you those 3 categories, where I said product development, technology, and marketing, it was to show you that it's a little bit more difficult than it may seem on the surface to find that balance. We can't alienate the old, and we need to attract the new. So it's a constant for us. That's why some of us have gray hairs. What state are you in? So that's where we're at. That's where we're at. We're open for questions.
Yes, thanks, Amy. We all grappling with it, I'm sure. So I see a millennial with a question.
Yes. Hi, I'm Sandra from SANParks News, and I just want to ask, in terms of, because you just mentioned now, like sort of reaching out to millennials, would you say that you're looking perhaps at a rebranding per se for SANParks? So from not just like changing the image, because for most millennials, myself included, I just thought when you said SANParks, to the national park, and that's been ended. So honestly speaking, I do not think there was more to the text. So I was like, oh, grammar error, and then life moving on. So would you say you look at an idea perhaps of rebranding and maybe sort of personalizing the nature experience so that the older generation still feels involved as well as the newer generation as well. So the experience is not completely lost, so we haven't lost both fields.
I think rebranding is a dicey exercise at all times. Firstly, we don't want to lose our name. It's a very strong heritage brand. It may not resonate similarly across all segments, and maybe that's what the challenge is. The challenge is how do we get every South African, before I even talk international, South African, because South Africans are 70 to 75% of our market. So the domestic market is literally our cornerstone. How do we get every South African to have a similar perception of what South African national parks presents? And earlier on, I alluded to an educational campaign as opposed to an advertising campaign. An educational campaign to get through to the youth of this world, to say it's more than the national park. And one of the messages that marketing has been tasked to drive going forward in that campaign is that there's a destination for all tastes. So we have coastal destinations, we have mountains, we have deserts, so it's not only about the big five. So it's really for us a very, very strong educational campaign that is needed. A rebranding, very few giant brands ever do rebrand, except successfully. Oh, successfully.
Yeah.
No, oh, successfully. Yes, successfully. I thought you said Eskom is rebranded. I probably need to. And I don't know. But it's a very dicey thing to do rebranding. What you typically would do is rather attempt to change the associations around your brand as opposed to calling it something else. We regard ourselves as a set of destinations, first and foremost. From the tourism perspective, we're a set of destinations. What is critical is to elevate the profile of the parks that people don't know about. So as destinations in their own rights. So when you think of Tsitsikamma, you think of an Ado, you think of the Golden Gate, you can immediately even place them in your mind in terms of which part of the country they're at. That we have not been good at. That's where we should take things.
People, you know what might work? It's like a wild card, it's like a sub-fund in a way. If you created a sub-fund with these people, almost like a club or a movement or something, just sort of slightly nuanced, because you can't change some parts. I think we've got an absolutely amazing brand, but maybe you've got to put a little thing there that just creates, then you have to look at all the products and all that other things. You might have to get a name for something that is targeting these people underneath it.
The BOMA,
Because
it's like wild card.
Because the brand SANParks, it's an idea that for a lot of people, because you know now it goes way back, it's old, it feels vintage, like oh my gosh, I'm going where all the old people have gone. But the idea of like the image, so when you're campaigning and stuff, that's what I meant with the question of rebranding, so that's sort of the personal image per se.
So the brand we want to see you to be the face of SANParks.
Yeah.
There's no doubt about it. I think I agree fully, and I like this idea very much. And I like the fact that we're having this conversation because, as I earlier said, some of these things are vexing. At some level, we don't want to fix what is not broken. At some level, we need to polish it. And next year, when we meet again, we're going to have other conversations to say this is where we try to move from this level to that level. This is what the success has been. I like the idea of some sort of subculture. I'm not too sure how we're going to go I'm not sure how we're going to do it. Are we going to get to a point where we say some parks and some camps are the Boma movement? Yeah. You got that? Maybe. You see what I'm saying? We have to make very difficult decisions at some point. Maybe. That's probably where it's heading. Where we say, maybe some parks, we just say, look, This is for, I didn't get your name, and her buddies. We'll make noise until 9:30. Not 9. Maybe there'll be certain flexibilities.
Yeah.
But we're the first to admit that it's not easy. And that's why I said, for the first time, we are saying, how do we gain acceptance? And it's a difficult growth path to go through. But we continue to attempt to get there.
Durban, did I see a hand? Yes, and then the gentleman asked.
First, I'd like to say thanks to Prof and NP for some of the 15 questions I had. I don't have.
My question is just simple. I want to find out: are we not running a risk of suggesting that the market is homogeneous in the country, regardless of where you are, by doing the sample, by getting the sample only from one province, which is, has got a very different socio-economic profile in the country compared to Limpopo and other provinces as well.
Yes, definitely, and that's why our second and third phases will spread out the sample. So I think our idea because very little is known about this market, our idea with the first phase was first to do some qualitative research to get an understanding, and then the second and third phase will go countrywide. So yeah, I completely agree.
If I can just add to that, it's clear from the results here that we cannot lump them all into one umbrella segment, and that's why the quantitative, we're hoping to find that we identify certain sub-segments and distinguish how they differ between those sub-segments and what this is going to mean for SANParks as well. Because it's clear that there is also, there were divided opinions on some aspects, so a quantitative approach would help us answer some of those questions.
Yes, ma'am. And then I see. Okay. There's a quick one from me. Have you thought of looking at their travel needs, take into consideration that there are expectations, there might be different expectations from overnight travelers, not overnight day travelers. Because you could put up very exciting packages for day trips that target them, because there's a lot of income that you generate from day trips than night trips. And our contribution to tourism has shown that what SSA has done in terms of the TSA is that there's a lot of contribution that we get from the day trips when it comes to domestic tourism contribution to GDP and employment. So that then you, instead of having them sleeping overnight, making that noise until 10 p.m., generate those trips, day trips, that can be the face of those trips. And then they can start to set the trend, they become trendsetters for those day trips over the years, and you can just keep on changing then in terms of the products that you are offering. But have them there for the day, they can move in the evening and go somewhere else where they can do nightclubs. They can travel because they don't have time to sleep, but they have energy to travel and move from one destination to the next.
Yeah. Sorry, that's a very good point. We have it. So what we've asked them is we've actually asked them in terms of all the parks, to which ones have they been as a day visitor or as overnight. So we do have that information. That's a very valid point that you're making, is that a lot of participants actually said that they've been to many of these parks as day visitors, but they haven't stayed overnight. But then it's always interesting, so as a facilitator you don't have to give too much detail, because then they actually start saying, no, but you have to sleep over because the sounds that you get at night are so much different than what you would experience as a day visitor. And that's definitely also something that we're looking into in the quantitative space.
Sorry, I've just got one question, clarity on the regarding the surveys that you've been doing. There's 3 phases. Altogether, when we reach the 3rd phase, how many people physically will you be spoken to, and secondly, when do you hope to complete everything?
So I think our aim, and we're always very ambitious, is to have about 1,200 respondents in the second phase and 1,200 in the third phase. I think that's about 2,400, and we hope to be done with that early next year.
And in the first phase, how many people was it?
54. Yeah.
Would I be correct, Professor, to say when we talk about focus group discussions, it's less about the number of respondents because it's qualitative research. So we can't say it is statistically representative. It's a dipstick to get a sense of where people's minds are at. So it's not about the number of respondents you have in the group. It's about how wide the thinking is.
And to frame the latest.
Yeah.
Good question.
I just wanted to ask, in terms of the sample, just wanted to understand why we had just housing, and then you said that the metropolitan, because in my thinking, the metropolitan would be Cape Town, Durban. Why did we have it that way?
So the first phase only focused on Gauteng, and we're done with that. The second phase will focus quantitatively on Gauteng. So there we will have 1,200 respondents from Gauteng only. And then the third phase will look at Cape Town, Durban, and I think you said East London and and 1,200 from those three metropolitans. So then we cover the whole country.
The other three will all be one country.
Yeah.
And the one country from Gauteng.
Yeah.
Can I ask why we decided to do it that way?
Good.
So what is the reasoning behind the research design where we decided Gauteng is a standalone and the other three metropolitan are different? Because why not makes it and be one thing? And also, what kind of sampling did you go with? Is it like a stratified one where it's representative? I just wanted to understand what was the back end of it.
I'm going to give across the opportunity to give you the right back end in terms of the stratification of the sample. But I think the most important thing I need to mention is when we do our market analysis, I think, help me if I'm wrong, 60% of our guests come from Gauteng. So Gauteng is an economic powerhouse, and you see it in expenditure patterns right across industry. We see it. So Gauteng is a big market, will always be a big market. Then it's followed by Western Cape. Then I'll leave the statistical definition.
So I understand it was like boosting the sample to have
Sorry?
was it to boost the sample to have a bigger representative of Gauteng because of the 60%?
So if we look at the majority of visitors come from Gauteng as a province, so obviously we need to get a large sample from Gauteng, and then as Emmy said, a smaller one from the Western Cape and so on. In terms of, it's very difficult to get a random sample, so I don't think we will do convenient sampling, but with the numbers that we have, we'll be able to do very good data analysis in terms of that.
Because it will mimic the part where we do inferences to see this is representative of millennials in South Africa, if we go with that convenient sample.
Obviously, but we don't have a data set of all millennials in South Africa, so it's very difficult to do a random sample. So.
And given the large sample size, it brings you closer towards a representative sample, even though it's not done with probabilities.
You could use the age to determine.
Thank you, everybody. Keep eating. Those who want to eat, thank you for your insights and for your attention.